All right, the goal of this informative speech is to inform my audience about the purpose and exceptions of the Fourth Amendment. If you're like any other typical person, you probably live with your phone glued to your hand. You most likely spend the day on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, checking emails, bank account balances, and perhaps doing some online shopping. You trust your phone is secure from any intrusion as long as your network is protected, right? What you didn't count on was on the police tracking your every keystroke, phone call, and text with the use of hidden stingray boxes. Let's say you did an online purchase of items the police deemed suspicious and suddenly get a knock on the door from your town's finest and you have no idea why. The Bill of Rights are a vital part of the U.S. Constitution and were added in 1791 to guarantee certain rights to the people. Their purpose was to limit the power of the federal government and guarantee citizens protection against any action from the government. All 10 amendments are vital to the survival of our free society. However, the Fourth, as well as the Fifth Amendments, hold special significance for the legal system, particularly in regards to criminal procedures. The Fourth Amendment protects citizens against being subjected to unwarranted searches without probable cause and a warrant specifying the specific place or person to be searched and what items must be seized. Let's first discuss the purpose of this vital amendment and how it applies to our daily lives. According to Robertson and Wallace, the Fourth Amendment was based upon a distrust of government and a desire to prevent arbitrary actions by that government or its agents in personal areas such as unreasonable seizures of persons, property, or other items without proper justification. The Fourth Amendment serves several purposes. Among them are to protect citizens against being subjected to unwarranted searches and to guarantee citizens a reasonable expectation of privacy on their daily moves. It is important to note it is not an absolute bar on all searches. It only applies to unreasonable ones. In other words, the amendment applies to places where the person has a degree of privacy, such as their body, their vehicle, their home, or private property. Before conducting a search, professionals must ask themselves if the Fourth Amendment applies, if it has been complied with, and if it hasn't, what kind of sanctions will the court impose on the officers conducting the search. It also requires a probable cause and a warrant specifying the specific place or person to be searched and what items must be seized. An example of why it is not barred to all searches is the acquisition of evidence found in open fields, in which the case in this case the Fourth Amendment does not apply. Other instances when it does not apply are when officers are not conducting a search but stumble upon evidence and when a party consents to a search. Now that you are aware of the purposes of the Fourth Amendment, let's discuss what and how to protect yourself when a violation has occurred. Actions to take when a violation has occurred. According to Cornell School Legal Information Institute, to claim a violation, the claimant must prove that he himself was the victim of an invasion of privacy to have a valid standing to claim protecting under the Fourth Amendment and prove a reasonable expectation of privacy which was randomly dishonored by the search. One can also file a Bivens action against a law enforcement official. As with every rule, there are always exceptions worth noting. Exceptions to the Fourth Amendment. As mentioned above, the Fourth Amendment has some exceptions where citizens have no expectation of privacy, such as open fields. There is no expectation of privacy for persons or property located in public open fields. Plain view. There is no expectation of privacy or property for property visible to an officer and found in plain view. Abandonment. There is no expectation of privacy for property deemed abandoned. Consent. Persons who give their consent for a search waive their right to protection under the Fourth Amendment. Airport searches. Travelers automatically waive their expectation of privacy in order to travel by air and as part of the established national security regulations. Border searches. In order to protect the U.S. national security, travelers who cross the border are not covered under the Fourth Amendment. Parolees and probationers. As a condition for release, most states require parolees and probationers to be subjected to searches as deemed necessary by their parole officers. Car searches. Law enforcement officers may conduct a traffic stop if they believe a traffic violation has occurred, and they may also do a pat-down of the driver during said stop if they have reason to suspect criminal activity. School searches. Students are subject to reasonable searches if they are conducted by school officials and not law enforcement. In the Supreme Court case New York versus TLO, it was determined that school officials need not obtain a warrant before searching a student who is under their authority. Rather, a search of a student need only be reasonable under all the circumstances. Searches incident to an arrest. Officers can conduct limited searches during an arrest. After the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, Congress introduced the Patriot Act to intercept and obstruct terrorism acts, which gives the government and law enforcement more power and a broader reach within the community with the goal of preventing any future attacks. It allows law enforcement to use sophisticated surveillance methods on anyone they suspect may be part of criminal activities. In conclusion, in my opinion, citizens of the United States must be able to have certain expectation of privacy, whether when using the internet, communication devices such as a cell phone, or at home. The moment the government infringes that right granted to us by the Constitution, it should be stopped. I believe the airport and border searches are the most important because they safeguard national security. As we are all painfully aware, airport and border security have many flaws that have proven to be deadly to U.S. citizens. Anyone wanting to enter the United States via air, land, or water must be subjected to thorough searches regardless of how inconvenient they may seem. In closing, our forefathers created the Fourth Amendment with the sole purpose of ensuring the government did not get too big and out of control that it would trample its own citizens' rights without any consequences. Sadly, for the past several decades, our government has slowly taken away our most basic rights with the excuse of keeping our nation safe. I agree national security is a main priority. However, it should not be achieved at the expense of our own civil rights. And for some visual aids, I've printed these out about the Fourth Amendment, surveillance, and stopping and frisking, searches and seizures. And there's also a kind of little comic strip here where it says, thanks to the Supreme Court, our cell phones are protected from illegal searches. And then it shows a nice little NSA agent sitting there saying, oh, that's adorable. So thank you for your time, everybody, and y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.